Alright, we are back with another Warrior recap and discussion, this time for episode 8, titled You Know When You're Losing a Fight. If you're a returning viewer, you know the deal. If you're new here, this is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna quickly recap the episode by going through the storylines for the major characters, and then Damon will follow up with discussion points. This episode was fucking nuts, so no time to waste, let's get going. We gotta start with the Longzi this episode for obvious reasons. Their entire tong is now in turmoil. The episode begins with Mai Ling having her wedding and all seems well. We see all of the major players in Chinatown there, such as Assam, Youngjun, Hong, Chao, and Atoy. Youngjun being there definitely surprised me because based on the way Mai Ling was handing out invitations in the previous episode, it seemed to me like he wasn't getting invited. Whatever, members of both the Hot Boy and Longzi are present and the actual ceremony goes off without a hitch. It's really during the wedding night where things get catastrophic and mimic a Game of Thrones style red wedding. At first, Compact tells Lee Young that the elders want to speak with him alone, which completely alerts Mai Ling to something being off. The elders want Lee Young to control Mai Ling because, let's face it, she's a power-hungry maniac who constantly places her own needs above the needs of the Tong. Lee Young refuses to go behind Mai Ling's back, at least not outside of the bedroom, and Compact has to speak to Lee Young alone. Compact tells Lee Young that the elders are no longer willing to be patient with Mai Ling, and they will fight her for control of the Tong if need be. Lee Young storms off and returns to Mai Ling, who has already pieced together what's happening and proceeds to go about her contingency plan, which involves brutally murdering all the elders in the Tong. This occurs while her and Lee Young are having some passionate wedding night sex. Did Mai Ling have an orgasm from Lee Young or from the thought of the elders being murdered? I'm gonna go with the murder. But Mai Ling's plan didn't go smoothly because Compact's elite instincts allowed him to survive the assassination attempt. The next morning during tea, Compact storms in and attempts to kill Mai Ling. Compact explains everything that happened, and you can see Lee Young's face processing all of the information and realizing that Mai Ling is an evil fuckface. It's wild because Mai Ling doesn't even hesitate to explain her reasoning for killing the elders when she's accused.
I offered you friendship and a seat at the table, and you betrayed me. You tried to turn my own husband against me.
This woman feels no remorse, but Lee Young still decides to protect Mai Ling, and all of a sudden it's Compact versus Lee Young. As the younger and better fighter at this point, Lee Young handles Compact and snaps his neck. Once again, Mai Ling's lack of remorse shows through with her fucking crocodile tears. Lee Young is holding a dead Compact in his hands when Mai Ling immediately tries to justify her actions again.
But we're free now, Lee Young.
Lee Young screams at her to go. The rift is now complete. Later on, Lee Young visits Chao to ensure that Compact's body is sent to China. Lee Young tells Chao that Compact was right all along about Mai Ling, and now he doesn't know what to do. Chao tells Lee Young that Mai Ling needs him in order to carry out her plans. Maybe she does love Lee Young, but ultimately it's Lee Young's usefulness that matters the most to her. Lee Young, a sad and broken man, walks out of Chao's place in the rain. Tough fucking situation for the Longzi. The Mai Ling-Lee Young relationship is forever altered, so we'll see how this plays out moving forward. Now, Damon, before you cover the Longzi, just talk to us a little bit about this episode as a whole and just that introduction wedding scene, because it was really important how they were juxtaposing that with certain scenes involving Buckley.
Alright, I want to start this out and introduce the opening sequence of this episode because it was hugely significant to me. Having Mai Ling and Lee Young's wedding alongside Buckley's crazy-ass victory speech falls back on one of the transitions that Warriors become really good at, honestly. By carrying over almost parallel actions from scene to scene, you can actually build momentum across multiple scenes with different subjects with ease. It's particularly well done when you can also intersperse language from one scene over the other.
Our ports, our factories, and our fields.
In this case, we see the two celebrations that produce slightly different tones, but both are basically a celebration of some sort. One is conceivably supposed to bring unity to a community, and the other one is promising to restore, quote unquote. We all know what that means. If you're actually paying attention, not everybody in the crowd is super psyched to see Buckley up there. There looks like some golf claps.
Tall fescue, which is around.
Each event is headlined by somebody who has shown poor morality throughout the entire season, shit, most of the show for that matter, and is almost entirely ruled by ambition. We know Buckley, we know Mai Ling, we know they're never up to any good, and this is essentially when one house of cards is cemented and one house of cards falls down in this episode. And that's the end of my film nerd rant. Let's take a look at the Longzi and see where they stand. This is the first episode I've ever discussed them before the Hop Way, and I think we all know why. My Ling got her red wedding, technically more like a red honeymoon, but now what? Let's just say in sports terms, they got a whole lot younger. That contrast of post-wedding sex with each elder being picked off one by one was insane, with that little light score being played in the background. Huge miscalculation by Mai Ling when she assumed Li Yong would be down for whatever it takes to protect her. I think the fact that Li Yong was given the offer by the elders before Mai Ling pulled this off without consulting him was basically the straw that broke the camel's back here. She could not calm him down post Kong Pak execution, and this is not the first time she's miscalculated this season. I thank the writers' room for this big time because they're showing that a character can't just strut through an entire season of a show as intense as Warrior while being a total asshole and only have a brief stint in jail to show for it. She had to serve some kind of comeuppance eventually. Now she's gonna have to maneuver like crazy, even though her manipulation has already been way too much. You can bet the 6 companies is going to be furious, and there are tons of other implications as well. Throughout the history, councils of elders are revered in Chinese culture, and to brutally murder your own is not going to be taken lightly by anybody. This could even be seen as a moment of major weakness. We can all agree Wu Jin was on borrowed time. The audacity of this man was crazy, but did he deserve that? That's debatable. Flipping to the other side here, Li Yong and his sacrifice. What could this man be thinking now? What he did by brutally killing his mentor so that his newly married wife, whose charm is wearing off at an alarming rate, like we're talking an Enron stock drop, can't be overstated here. It was a fantastic fight scene, like Chen said. It'd be definitely worth a recap, but at what cost? Like, this ain't Roadhouse, man. He wasn't just beating on a random asshole. This was pretty much the only dude he looked up to. Personally, I don't know if he's ever going to be the same. I wouldn't be shocked to see him turn on Mai Ling in a small degree, even if it's something as simple as him just not following her directions to a T anymore. Joe Taslim gets the performance of the episode by far. He showed some serious range displaying those deep-seated emotions post Kong Pak death. We know he's a hell of a fighter, but you can see the pain in those eyes as he carries out the inevitable kill of his beloved mentor.
Now let's move on to the Hop Way. Their storyline is fairly simple, but starts getting interesting during the night of Mai Ling's wedding. It all begins when Assam pulls up to Youngjun and asks about why he's training Hop Way printers to replace Yenmi. Youngjun tells Assam that she knows too much and that Assam shouldn't get too attached to her. Basically, he's gonna fucking chop her head off once they can print without her. Youngjun then leaves in the pursuit of some sticky, and Chao pulls up to Assam to tell him that love can be dangerous. Chao, always a man of wisdom. On their walk home from the wedding, Hong starts telling Youngjun about Marcel, which is pretty cool. Father Jun happens to be sitting outside in his pajamas, and Hong leaves to allow some father-son bonding time to happen. It's one of the rare nights where Father Jun isn't delirious, so he wants to enjoy his time. He tells Youngjun that he can feel himself slipping mentally, and when Youngjun says that he'll recover and get better, Father Jun's response is pretty sad.
When you've scrapped as much as I have, you know when you're losing the fight.
Father Jun then tells Youngjun to watch out for Assam. Both him and Mai Ling aren't meant to take orders. Youngjun doesn't believe that Assam would ever challenge him for the tong, but once again, Father Jun's response leaves Youngjun a lot to think about.
But he would never challenge me for the tong.
That's what I said about you.
Meanwhile, Assam delivers a warning message to Yenmi, telling her that Youngjun has plans to take her out, and she should look to get out of Chinatown before it's too late. Give lots of credit to Yenmi. Instead of getting sappy and emotional, she processes the news calmly. The Hop Way storyline ends when Father Jun wakes up Youngjun with a knife to his throat. Father Jun is suffering from a delirious episode again, and he thinks that Youngjun is an enemy member. Youngjun tries his best to shake Father Jun out of the delirious state, but it doesn't work, and Father Jun nearly kills his son with a throat slash. Fortunately, Youngjun survives, and he disarms Father Jun. When Father Jun awakens from his trance and realizes that he almost killed his son, he breaks down into tears. It's a super sad scene, and you can see Youngjun have a moment of clarity where he realizes that his father is indeed gone for good.
Flipping over to our boys on the Hop Way side, and we have an entirely different set of concerns here. Looking at Assam and Yanmi, maybe I'm just getting softer as I age, but that Assam Yanmi scene toward the end of the episode had me feeling something.
Every now and then I get a little bit lonely.
Her leaving is definitely for the best, and you also gotta feel for Assam. He's just not allowed to have nice things, I guess. Even if she leaves, she might also get nabbed by Lee before she even gets a chance to escape. That's the way it is for a brooding hero figure though. Assam's gotta make sacrifices, and this is just another one. It raises a couple important questions that we'll see answered. Does this event fuel an inner rage that motivates his ambition to take over a tong? Or does it actually create more bitterness that makes him want to get the hell out of Chinatown and find a better life for himself? I don't know if we're going to get some kind of Goodwill Hunting ending with all that's left for Assam to handle in Chinatown, but like Chen said, love will influence a man in crazy ways. The Junes are not in good shape right now. Let's start with the positives. There is a nice father-son moment in the spot that looks very similar to the area where Father June gave his farewell advice to Young June at the end of season 2. Young June is probably going to make a move on Assam at this point unless the Longzi Elder massacre creates an opportunity that may be a brief distraction. I think it's very disappointing Father June still isn't close to a full recovery, and mentally he's probably never going to be 100%. He's just way too damn smart and dynamic as a resource for that. You probably caught it, but Young June gives this look of epiphany after he calms his father down after the infamous throat cut. To me, it seems like another parallel here. Earlier in the episode, Father June made the connection between how Assam might be coming for Young June because he had similar thoughts about Young June before he came for Father June's seat at the head of the Tong. Young June now sees his father pretty weak and close to the end, but I see this as a bad sign for Assam and for Young June actually chilling out. It might just motivate his paranoia a little bit more, like, damn, my dad's about to go out. Am I going to be like that? Am I going to play those same cards, or am I going to step up?
Alright, let's talk some Dylan Leary next, which involves some Strickland as well. Leary starts the episode off watching Buckley get sworn in as mayor. Leary is about to press Buckley to get the Donahue boys out of jail when Strickland stops him from being stupid. They finally gotten their pawn in office, and wasting valuable political capital on getting two dumb fucks out of jail would be seriously foolish. Strickland chews Leary out. If he can't find a way to get a mostly Irish police force to free those Irish boys, then maybe he's fucking useless. Later on, Leary is at the Banshee getting yelled at by Killy, the father of the Donahue boys. When Killy brings up Leary's own kids, Leary loses his temper. Killy does tell Leary that he's forgotten who he is, and that hits a nerve. Bill, who we'll get into more later, happens to be at the Banshee as well, having a depressing drink. Bill basically says fuck it, and he and Leary end up at the police station, where Leary serves as a ring coach for Bill's brawl with Atwood. Ultimately, the Donahue boys are freed, and Leary's last words in the episode are pretty epic.
That's an Irishman.
Don't worry, y'all, we'll definitely talk more about Big Bill, so settle down. So on to Big Bill. He starts off the episode getting a move into the back office. At the behest of his wife, Horace has decided to move Bill into accounting.
Thought I had to work my way up.
My wife thought otherwise.
You know what they say, happy wife, happy life. Bill now has to work under this grade A douchebag who reminds me a lot of the guys I met back when I was on Wall Street. Their fathers usually work at like Morgan Stanley or some shit, and they summer in Nantucket or the Hamptons. Literally the exact type of guy a blue-collar man like Bill would despise. Later on, Bill is at the Banshee witnessing Leary's argument with Killy when he takes a stand and heads down to the police station to try and get the Donahue boys out. At first, Harrison is unwilling to budge, but Bill says that Atwood is going to fire all of the Irish cops at some point anyways, so fuck it. This basically works, and as Harrison is leading them down to the cells to free the Donahue boys, Atwood pulls up. At first, Atwood wants to arrest both Leary and Bill, but when Harrison refuses to cuff them, Atwood has another idea. He wants to shoot the fair one with Bill. If Bill can beat his ass, Atwood will let the Donahue boys go. Gotta give some credit to Atwood here. At first, Bill is hesitant, but Atwood just straight snuffs him. A Hell in a Cell match commences, and at first Bill is getting his ass whooped, but he finds a second win and manages to take Atwood down. This body slam was elite shit from Bill. Also, gotta love Leary's coaching from the sidelines.
Keep your fucking house up there!
Bill returns home mangled to Lucy, where he tells her what went down. Lucy knows that beating up the chief of police isn't going to result in anything good, so she immediately starts chugging whiskey to process the information. Still, you can see that she's kind of proud that Bill did end up getting the Donahue boys out, but we'll see how Atwood responds.
Stepping away from a little tong talk, let's look at our Irish renegades. Leary, baby. It took over half a season, but we finally have a Strickland and Leary feud. The easiest way to explain the difference between these two dudes is that Leary cares about people and Strickland probably doesn't. He definitely doesn't.
Indeed.
He sees people as a means to an end. You can tell it just in the way he talks about people.
Or what he's told.
The symbolism of the Donahue boys is really hard to ignore, despite the fact that these two are undeniable shitheads. They're part of the community Leary stands for the most. We saw the connection drawn between his own sons, who have since passed, and it's clear that Leary definitely empathizes with the pain in their father's eyes, despite the fact that he was getting on Leary's last nerve. 5 years is a long ass time for some petty thievery, and Strickland keeps his eye on the big fish so long as it benefits him, where Leary is a man of the people. Leary and Bill teaming up was like watching Kobe and Shaq in the 0-2 finals. God damn, was it a crazy idea? Absolutely.
Fuck it. Let's go.
But it was also one of my favorite 10-minute sequences in Warrior history. Speaking of Big Bill, we've been waiting to see this version of you for about 3 weeks, dog. Glad you showed up. I can't tell whether it says more about Bill or Atwood that most of the force is cool with Bill busting out the Donahue boys. Probably Atwood. I mean, he might be one of the worst bosses in movie and TV history. And the boys have had about enough of the 1870s Rudy Giuliani shtick. Not so different from Leary and Strickland, it's become real clear that Bill actually values humanity, and Atwood is just a cold, calculating rule stickler who gets off on holding power over other people. There are few things I've enjoyed more than watching Bill's epic comeback during the high-stakes Hell in a Cell match he found himself in. We might have to do a fight recap on that one. It'd be sloppy as hell, but it'd be pretty funny. A common theme in Warrior is that the person who has more to fight for will often win the fight when physical skill is similar. Since these guys are both semi-washed, middle-aged white guys who do have nice right hooks, it plays out here again flawlessly. Having Leary as your fight coach doesn't hurt either.
Absolutely no way! You gotta be kidding me!
Unfortunately, you cannot just beat the living shit out of a police chief without triggering some kind of consequence. Why couldn't he just settle into that sweet little desk job in order to secure a more stable future like half of the American workforce has today? Man had the same look in his eyes looking at those balance sheets as I did during my boring ass accounting class in college, probably because he feels nothing for it. This is a man of action who's only known and loved one way of life. Even if it drives his wife insane, she might want to grab another bottle or three. I'd love for him to flip the script here. Maybe Leary can pull some strings, get him reinstated after booting Atwood. That sounds incredible, but very unlikely. Maybe he just teams up with Leary for good. I don't know, man, but we gotta free Big Bill. I can't have him ending the season in a prison cell.
Let's move on to Lee and Chao. I'm going to start with Chao. He's in attendance for Mai Ling's wedding, and when Atoy thinks that this could be the start of peace between the Tongs, Chao's cynical side disagrees. Later on in the night, Chao tries to give Assam some advice on not letting love cloud his judgment, and then he also confronts Lee, who happens to be spying on the wedding with Mosley. Chao wants Lee to stop investigating Tong business, but Lee refuses. Later on in the episode, Chao helps Li Yong handle sending Compact's body back to China. Chao gives Li Yong another dose of reality on who Mai Ling really is, and that's pretty much it for Chao. Shout out to Hoon Lee, the actor who plays Chao, for serving as a writer on this episode. As for Lee, he begins the episode spying on Mai Ling's wedding, and he quickly finds it fishy that both the Hop Wei and Long Zi would be together. Lee is a smart cat, so he's figuring out that both Tongs must be involved in the printing business. When Chao tries to convince Lee to leave this all alone, Lee tells Chao that he's going to solve the case, and if Chao happens to be involved, which Lee knows that he is, Lee won't hesitate to get him in trouble. As Lee is leaving the wedding, he sees Yenmi, who he recognizes from the print shop when Mosley was fucking shit up earlier. The pieces of the puzzle are all there. Later on, when Assam is warning Yenmi to get out of town, we see Lee spying on them from the shadows. Oh no.
To keep it on the topic of the justice system here, Lee, I really like the chemistry and the understanding form between Lee and Chao in episode 6. The Warrior writing team has made some deliberate decisions this season that have paid off well. It sucks for the Hop Wei that this guy is an elite investigator and he's motivated by his own freedom. You know he's finding those plates before the end of the season for sure. It's just a matter of where and when he finds them. And Chao's got to find a way to take care of those plates before shit hits the fan here. This guy's quote game has been elite all season.
I've seen the smartest people do the stupidest things, chasing love.
Season 3 Chao is my favorite to this point.
Well, just because something's rare doesn't mean it isn't real.
His comment at the very start of the episode shows he's remained sharp and well attuned to the situations all around him. Lee could very well burn him despite their brief bro down. Does it make more sense than ever to pin these plates on Mai Ling with all the controversy about to unfold? These plates are one of the last remaining dominoes to fall as the season wraps up. Look for them to make a big splash soon with whoever they are found on. I guarantee that.
Okay, let's cover Atoy real quick. She hates weddings, but she's present at Mai Ling's wedding to start. Later on during the nighttime celebrations, she gets ambushed by Mingyu and his men. Mingyu basically wants sex as payment for his girls, and Atoy responds with biting his nose off and then killing him and his goon with her fan blade. Assam arrives late to the scene, but Atoy has it all taken care of. That's pretty much it for Atoy this episode, although we do need to mention Lai. The episode ends with Lai disguised as a maid in Strickland's mansion. Gotta admit, it's pretty smart and badass by Lai, but also extremely dangerous, so we'll see how that plays out.
Shifting the convo over to Atoy's side, she made quick work of that rival brothel and was well justified in her self-defense. How many times are people gonna keep trying to come for Atoy? She's happy for Assam for that brief moment, and like Chen mentioned before, I like the bond that's continued to grow between them, though I do worry about her given the fact that a target is constantly hovering over her as a successful businesswoman, and because her protege seemingly has a death wish here. But I have to give Lai some more credit. She's actually playing a long game and being very patient. Excellent reveal at the end of the episode. This is some top-notch revenge game. How much longer will it take for her to make her move, and will Atoy get dragged in at some point? I'm really looking forward to that showdown.
As for Buckley, his storyline is very simple this episode. He gets sworn in as mayor while Mai Ling's wedding is going on. He immediately goes off on an anti-Chinese rant that might as well have been the equivalent of Meek Mill's Dreams and Nightmares intro to a racist person.
I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this, so I had to.
And that's pretty much it for Buckley. Things seem good for him now, but we know Strickland is gonna start giving orders relatively soon.
Last, and maybe also least, we got Buckley. The scheming grinder is finally mayor. What does this mean for the future and for his future? Somebody said Governor Buckley at one point. I almost spit out my water. That would be just terrible.
That boy ain't right.
Mai Ling helping to elevate this guy has resulted in a serious downfall. These policies he's enforcing are ridiculously stringent, and as history has shown, similar laws had a devastating impact on Chinese communities and culture within the US. You can trace almost every negative occurrence in this episode and every major negative occurrence in this season almost directly to one of Mai Ling's poor choices from earlier in the season or season 2.
I want blood in the streets.
It's kind of wild, like a shitty butterfly effect. Can anything stop this guy? Now would be a great time to find out the scumbag Pinkerton agent has another copy of Buckley looking like a Duck Dynasty extra dressed in Confederate grays. Unlikely, but a man can dream.
Okay, that pretty much does it for our episode 8 discussion and recap. We'll be back with episode 9, so stay tuned. As always, big thanks to everyone for watching these videos and joining in on the discussion. We'll catch y'all later.